So we know that you are quite an expert in marital and couples counselling here. So can you talk us through a bit about some of your more common cases?
Most of the couples that I see, really, at the end of the day, communication is one of the key issues. Maybe because of the Asian background where communication is a little bit more functional. So we hardly go into the emotions, right, associated with whatever events is happening in life. That's really one of the key issues for especially Asian couples.
Out of all the cases that you have seen, do you see more couples that either premarital or struggling or working through their marriage or through divorce? What's the most common cases based on your experience?
50% or more marital cases, they've been married for 5 years, 7 years, some 10 years. But it's a good thing that they come because they really want to work on the marriage and they want the marriage to last. So they are here to see me to work through certain issues that have been a challenge. For couples that divorce and they want to work on co-parenting, that's also admirable because they really want to help the child to go through the transition. So they as parents, they are trying to work out the differences so that the child is not adversely affected. That's also a very admirable effort by parents who continue to see me for co-parenting issues.
Yeah, I feel like there's two parts to it, right? The marital issues and then the separation issues that ensue after that. So let's talk about marital issues, right? If a couple has been together for that long, like you say, anywhere from 5 to 10 years and above, what is usually the impetus, the trigger that would cause them to seek out marriage therapy? And normally, how would you work around to help them? How do you help them to untie and to unlearn and relearn through such many years of marriage or being together?
I think one of the trigger for them to want to seek marital counselling, quite a few of them, they have children. When the children are very young, they're very busy, attending to the children and so on and so forth. But over the years, maybe in some sense, they have neglected the relationship between themselves. So after the children have grown up a little bit more, say when the children are 4 or 5 years, less of the caregiving, they go to school, so the parents kind of have a little bit more time. Then they realize that they have neglected their relationship over the past couple of years. It's not very healthy, so they realize that they want to really restore something in a marriage. What I do with them, one of the things is for them to understand each of their family background. So that's where I explore the genogram. Yeah, so each of them have their own kind of family culture. So the exploration of that will help them to appreciate the differences in their family culture and the differences between themselves. And not let that difference tear them apart, but if they can find a synergy, even through that differences, I think they can make things work better.
So basically to recognize those differences and help them identify and be aware of it and then work through it together. Can I come up with a scenario? Say it's a new-ish couple, maybe a few years old of marriage, and they have a young one. Obviously, the young one will add extra stress to maybe small frictions around in the house already. So that causes things to be made worse. And maybe it's even the littlest things like one spouse wants to keep the house really neat, but the other spouse, because of stress or whatever, makes the household less than ideal. And so this very common cause of friction. You can't really apply your family culture and things like that to it because it's more a case of preference clash. So how can we work through such minor issues when added all together it becomes very explosive?
Okay, so that's a very common problem. In fact, every couple will have their unique behaviors and habits and so on. So even for myself, after married for 30 over years, there are still some frictions here and there. Okay, so Gottman is a marital counseling guru, right? So he has done decades of research on couples and so on. So in his analysis of even very healthy couples, he has studied 3,000 couples actually. He realized that even among healthy couples that continue to be, in some sense, happily married, there is a 70% of differences between them that are perpetual. Yeah, so there will be differences, and according to Gottman, 70% will remain there for life for the couple. So then, given this reality, what do we do with these differences? So one of them is really to accept it as that person's unique characteristics. We can't change that part of that person. Then in order to coexist to some extent, we got to accept and appreciate even those differences.
Okay, so for those who are new to the Gottman approach, can you explain how can you apply Gottman to resolve such family or marital issues?
Gottman has quite a few principles that will be helpful to build a relationship. So one of the principles that he has is turning towards instead of turning away. So when there is a disagreement, for example, my approach would be wanting to hear you out rather than dismissing you and then ignoring you and just not allowing the differences to be resolved. So that's really about turning towards. So respecting you, respecting your ideas, your opinions, your preference, and trying to understand you and what are the underlying motivation to behave in those ways. So that's one of the things that Gottman does. The other thing is he uses quite a bit of ratios. He's a mathematician by training as well. So there's a 5-1 ratio. Yeah. So what the 5-1 ratio means is that for everything that you are not happy with me, so let's say there's one thing that irritates you, I need to do 5 things that make up for it. So I need to be very conscious that to make a relationship, there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of hard work. And if I value the relationship, then I have to put in the hard work to make sure that whatever in me that displeases you, I have to do 5 things that pleases you.
This is a very ideal scenario where both parties are super cooperative in wanting to make the relationship work. But I'm sure we have cases where one party is more willing than the other. Maybe the other is a bit more fixated or a bit more egoistic or a bit more alpha type, right? So how do we work through more challenging individuals?
In Gottman's idea of a good relationship, there are actually 2 pillars that are very important. 2 pillars are trust and commitment. So earlier on you mentioned about one partner is committed, the other one is not quite committed. Then that pillar for this relationship is not strong because only one person is committed. Yeah. So for the relationship to be strong, both parties must have that commitment to want to make the relationship work, to want to make that relationship last. So that is actually one of the fundamental things that we need to address. What is it that is causing that reluctance to commit? And if there is a way to address that and to increase that commitment, I think that is also fundamental.
Brings me to the next point. If someone in a relationship is on the fence, what are usually the factors or the things that you would highlight in order to help that person decide which side of the fence they are more likely to lean towards?
That's a very good question. Yeah. So in marital counseling, there is also a process that is before the marital counseling. We call it discernment counseling. That is a pre-phase actually to marital counseling. So in discernment counseling, what we do is to explore with the couple about their idea with regards to the future of the marriage. So for someone who is sitting on the fence, then they are really not ready to fully commit to want to work on the marriage. It's neither in nor out. So that is a very difficult position to be in. To proceed to marital counseling is not going to be very successful for such a case.
Explain the process again. This discernment counseling happens before a marriage.
So discernment counseling is for married couples, but if one of the couple is on the fence, like you say, so not quite sure whether he or she wants to continue with the marriage or to go for separation kind of thing. Yeah, so that is a very tricky situation. So what we do in discernment counseling is to help the couple to come to a common decision regards to the future of the marriage. This is when both couples are committed to say, yes, I think I want to give this a second chance. And then we kind of contract with them, okay, why don't we give it 6 months? Let's put our best effort into trying to make this marriage work. So we are not going to talk about separation. We are not going to even think about divorce and things like that. We want to give our full commitment to work on this marriage through marital counseling, and we give it a runway of 6 months.
What are some of the questions that you would ask during discernment counseling to help them reach a decision?
Okay, so part of the process of discernment counseling is to find out what the issues that is causing the marriage to break down. Then I will explore with them individually. So let's say the person who has committed the extramarital affairs, I will explore with that person if he is prepared to cut off that relationship and to go back to his or her spouse, because that is really necessary for them to work on the marriage. And for the other party, who is like being the betrayed party, is he or she ready to forgive the other person and to give that marriage a chance to be restored? Yeah, so that is part of the discernment process. And until both parties have made a decision to say, yes, I think I want to leave the past behind and I want to move on and try to work on this marriage.
Wow, very insightful discussion about marriage counselling. I'm learning so much from you. I wish we had more of these conversations around the clinic. But anyway, now moving on to, say a couple has decided to separate and they want to make it as amicable as possible. They still want to maintain some sort of good relationship, especially if a child or children are involved. You would call this co-parenting, right?
Yes.
Can you walk us through a bit how this whole process works?
When a couple decide to part ways, it is actually one of the very major stresses in life. Let's say if they have children, there is a lot of uncertainty in regards to the divorce. So there are many issues to really think through. So for example, who is the child going to stay with? So is it going to be half? Is it going to be more with one parent and then the other parent has less access? Part of the divorce settlement. So there are other things that will be required as part of the divorce settlement. So matrimonial assets, how we're going to distribute it, and then if they own a house, who is going to take over that house? The issue of maintenance, how much are they going to pay for the child maintenance and the spousal maintenance? And there is also social impact. A lot of divorce cause a lot of uncertainty with the mutual friends. So if I have a mutual friend, then who is that mutual friend going to be supportive of? And sometimes that mutual friend is caught in between, right? So I spend more time with one side or less time with the other side, and so relationship gets impacted. Even the in-laws, how is it going to be like for them going forward? So do I still continue to visit my in-laws or not? Of course, we got to think about the children as well. The children will have grandparents from both sides or aunties and uncles from both sides. How is that relationship going to be like after the divorce? So there are a ton of issues that is associated with separation and divorce. That's why they say divorce itself is a very stressful period of time.
Can we, let's say, focus on young child having to face divorce, right? What are some of the impacts to the child and how can the parents who are separated help to soften it?
Let's say a couple coming in have already decided to go for separation or divorce. One of the first things that I will explore with them is how would they divulge the news to the children. That is perhaps one of the first major concern. So if the couple are still amicable and they can still talk to each other and so on, then I would encourage them to have a family session and both parents to sit down the children and to have that conversation with the children. What do we want to have as important things to talk about in that conversation, in the family conversation? First is to let the children know the divorce is an adult decision. Right? It is a decision between the parents. After perhaps years of trying to work things out, they decided that it's best that they go separate ways. Nothing to do with the children. We never want the children to feel any kind of guilt or any kind of responsibility towards the divorce. One of the things that we will encourage the parents to let the children know, and then to also let the children know that post-divorce, mom will still be mom, dad will still be dad, and both of us will still love the children. The family is still a family, although in a different structure. Yeah, but we are still a family. So mom will forever be mom, dad will forever be dad. And the other things that we also try to encourage parents to let the children know is about certainty, what's going to happen, when is it going to happen, and where the children is going to be staying, who the children will be staying with, and what is the access like with the other parent. So there is a certain predictability about what's going to happen. And I'm still going to the same school. Yeah, there's no change about that. Let's say if one of the parents always fetch the children to school and back from school, will that be the same or would it be different? So then there's a better assurance if the children knows what's going to happen in the future. Yeah, so these are some things that we will start talking to the parents as part of the co-parenting journey.
I wonder if you have any further tips on making this whole journey a more collaborative and less stressful experience for both the parents and the child?
In recent times, I think probably like a year or 2 years ago, the legal system has made some major changes. So now the couple can go on a kind of uncontested brief divorce track. So they call it a divorce by mutual agreement. Prior to this, the couple had to give a reason for the divorce. So one of 5 reasons. So for example, extramarital affairs, unreasonable behaviors, or dissertation and so on. A lot of couples usually use extramarital affairs or unreasonable behavior as a reason for the divorce. So can you imagine at the start, there's already that unpleasant feeling. One of them is unreasonable. Yeah, and then they have to sign to agree that I'm the unreasonable party. That's why I'm causing the divorce. So from the start, the divorce is already starting on a very contentious ground. So that's why they introduced this divorce by mutual agreement. So if both parties agree to go ahead with the divorce, that's good enough. No particular reason needed. For that, I think there is also a new approach to the divorce process where both parties engage one lawyer to represent them together to try to draft up the divorce agreement rather than have individual lawyers trying to fight for each other's rights. And that can go into a very contentious kind of situation and make things very heated.
Do you find their behaviors a bit more erratic and a bit harder to manage for those who are in families that have been separated than not? And if so, how do separated parents deal with it?
That's where co-parenting come into play. So co-parenting, we are trying to help the parents to continue to parent the children in the best way possible, collaboratively. Right? If that happens, then I think the children have a better chance of growing up in a more healthy environment. Yeah, so separation or divorce, not necessarily is always a bad thing. If the parents are very contentious and even violent towards one another when they are together, and if the children grow up in that environment under the same roof and always observing the parents fighting, that itself is also not a very good environment for the children growing up. In those situations, after the parents separate, there's a lot more peace in each of the household, and if the parents can still collaborate in some extent, in that way, the children actually grow up better.
What if there is an errant behavior in the child, right? And then either parents are like blaming the other person on it. Then how can we apply some co-parenting tips, techniques to help to make peace and also help the child as a result of it?
We do see such issues when, especially if the two parents are still acrimonious and things like that. One of the symptoms that we see in children caught in between this acrimonious relationship between the parents is that they will have loyalty struggle. So if I'm good with my mom, my dad will not be happy. If I'm good with my dad, my mom will not be happy. So then I need to choose one of them. So sometimes when children misbehave, it's a symptom of something. So is it because of this loyalty struggle that they are having? Is there something else that's really happening for the child? So in these situations, we try to see if we can reach out to the child. If there are underlying issues that the child is struggling with, then we want to amplify the voice of the child through the parents. So hopefully that will help the parents to see things from the child's perspective and maybe adjust the way that they are behaving with one another to help the child better cope.
Yeah, there's a lot that a child can also tell, right? Through their symptoms, their behaviors. That's very insightful discussion. You've been recently certified as a Prepare Enrich trainer. So can you tell us what is this Prepare Enrich program and how do you apply it for your usual marital counselling sessions?
Prepare Enrich is an assessment tool, so it has been around for decades. And up to date globally, there were at least more than 5 million couples who have taken this assessment tool. This is an online tool, so the partner each will go in to fill up this assessment, about 100 over 200 questions, and then they will get the individual response and then collate them into a couple report. The report will highlight several different dynamics between the couples, so the quality of their communication, the quality of their conflict resolution skills. How is it like with their family and friends? Are they on the same page with regards to that? How manage the roles and responsibilities at home? Also financial management. So it gives a scoring on all these very important dimensions of a couple relationship. And then from there, the couple is made aware, oh, actually, I thought I was pretty strong in this particular area, but actually not. And then we can have a conversation around that and then see if the couple wants to target on a few of these areas that they want to work on to strengthen the couple relationship.
Is it self-assessment or is it peer assessment between each other?
It's self-assessment. So I will answer the question based on my position on this. And then the other partner will put her answer, and then the software will collate the two responses.
What kind of couples would you recommend this to? And how does it differ from other types of couples therapy approaches?
So out there are several different assessment tools. So I've been using this for many years. There's also a Gottman assessment tool. So what I found very useful for Prepare Enrich is that the results are presented in a graphical form. So rather than looking at all the individual numbers and so on and trying to make sense of all those numbers, it presented it in a graphical form. So it's a little bit easier to share the results and easier for the couple also to see the result graphically.
As someone who is now a Prepare Enrich trainer, who do you train and how does it benefit them?
Okay, so for someone who is just venturing out into couple counseling, I think this can be a very good tool for them to start out their work. Why I say that is couple counseling actually is quite complicated because there's so many dimensions to the relationship, and there are so many ways that the relationship can be good and many ways that the relationship can be affected. So it's not just between the couple, but the ecosystem around the couple, right? If there are children involved, parenting challenges, if there are differences in parenting, how is that affecting the couple relationship? How does my in-law deal with us as a couple? Are they interfering or are they helping? How is my work stress affecting the relationship? So there are so many dimensions to a couple relationship, and it can take many sessions really to uncover all these many different dimensions. But Prepare Enrich is a tool that we can give to the couple. They do it at their own time, and most of the couple finish it within an hour. So you can imagine 1 hour on the couple's time, and what comes back to me as a therapist is a ton of information. So I actually cut short the assessment for the couple dynamics by using this tool.
So now as a trainer, who do you train? And why would it be beneficial for these parties?
I've just been certified as a trainer, so I haven't actually started my first training. So I'm targeting maybe some of the therapists in this center as well as my other center. So those who are really keen to want to explore couple counseling, this is a tool that I would introduce to them, and if they find that it is helpful for them, I think they can just grab this, put this as part of toolbox in the couple counseling.
When do you think a couple should consider therapy?
I think in Singapore's context, there is already an encouragement for premarital counseling, right? So there are many centers that offer that the premarital counseling. So hopefully that will be helpful for them to know what they are getting into. Yeah, but it's never like really getting into and walking that journey. I would encourage is when couples start to have their own house and they move into their matrimonial home, perhaps things will start to be a bit more tricky. So how I would like it to be renovated, how I like things to be done, and who is going to do which duty, the laundry, washing of the dishes, cleaning the toilets, and then all those habits will start to, even personal habits like hygiene habits, right? How you maintain the toilet, where do you put things in the toilet, and so on. It can become a challenge. When the children arrive, that's again another big challenge, right? The parenting differences, expectations, and so on and so forth. And people get more tired, they get more irritated, and so on and so forth. So I would say during this kind of transitions, don't wait too long if you see that issues are just cropping up and tearing the couple apart. So don't wait too long. Come in, seek help. There's no shame in seeking help because you value the relationship, you value the family, and if the help can really strengthen the family and the relationship, why not?